Great day here in New Haven, and it's even better when I'm joined by my pal Mary Sheils. Mary's been a frequent contributor on this show concerning matters of taxes, finance, and all things relative to the economy in which we live. And I'm better for my guests on this show because, first of all, it amazes me the quality of people I have. But secondly, when I start to study them and I start to study the written works and what they've done, I learn a lot. And this is how I learn, you know. And it's great for me, and it's incredibly valuable information. So, Mary, it's wonderful to have you. How have you been? It's been a while.
Thank you, Tony. Yes, it has. I think the last time I was on your show was in the spring, and I'm sorry that it has been so long. I just haven't been available. But good to be back. Thanks.
Well, hope all has been okay, and you've been doing endeavors that you've been pleased to do.
Yes, thank you. All is good. Yeah, all is good.
Terrific. And I just thought when I was putting this together last week and we were talking about what would be a good show for the post-election, I immediately thought of you because it seems that so many things get involved in elections and so many things sort of go back and forth, and you get into the heat of the moment, and all of a sudden that Tuesday is over and wham, there we have whatever we have. And my first thought with any election is, how does this particular election impact what I do, what my friends might do, what my clients might do, the region I live in, the state of the nation, and you know, 50 million thoughts will go running through my head. What might your sense of events be?
Well, thank you for giving me that segue, because I think that the election was extremely positive from a couple of standpoints. First of all, I think that we now have a balanced government, which is what our founders expected us to have when they drafted the Constitution the way that they did. And while I know that there has been a lot of obstructionism on both sides of the aisle, I do think that the American people sent a message to Washington that they want to see things change. I think it's going to be a very interesting time.
Do you... No, I'm sorry, please continue.
No, the American people are saying that they want to see action coming out of Washington, and that they're really fed up with the dysfunction. By the way, it's not unusual for the incumbent party to receive a drubbing in the midterm elections. It happens almost all the time. It happened to Bill Clinton, and he certainly moved to the center in his governing, and I think that all of us would agree that the economy certainly got better under his administration. Of course, we weren't fighting any Iraq war at that time, and so economically the stock market rose and interest rates were manageable, and we had healthy productivity. So every time that the midterm elections occur and there is a change in power, it can be good, and I think this will be a good period for us. But I do think that the American people sent a message that they want to see change, and that they were unhappy with the way things were going.
Do you feel that there finally will be some movement, and if we do see movement in the House and the Senate, what type of movement do you think we'll see? And I understand this is kind of a two-year beauty contest for both parties hoping to gain control in 2016.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I mean, the big issues are immigration and health care, and then the economy, and, you know, whatever order you want to talk. But I think that immigration is something that we all recognize needs to be addressed. And I think that there will be a way to keep current administrations from acting unilaterally, because now with the Senate and the House in the control of the Republicans, you'll have to meet them, you know, halfway. And and I think that that's the message. But I do think that we have to address immigration, and you know, each side of the aisle approaches it differently. But I do think that we can find common ground. In terms of health care, I think that we're not going to repeal it because it is a law, but I think that we can change and amend it. I mean, people are very unhappy with the idea that they can't use their own doctors. I mean, that happened to me. I didn't particularly care as much because I live in New York where I can find other competent doctors, but it's upsetting to a lot of people to have to go through that process. First of all, finding doctors that will take your new insurance. It's a real pain in the neck.
Sure.
So I think people will they'll want to see that part amended. And I think also there's something about the medical devices that I'm not as up on, but somehow that was a provision of the Obamacare that has given a bad taste in the mouths of a lot of people. And that's an issue. And third, I think in terms of the health care, shortening the week work to avoid having to do it is not a productive thing to do. I mean, if you can get more work out of somebody in 40 hours than 30 hours, or 35, whatever the cutoff is, so that you don't have to pay benefits. I mean, that's a silly reason
it's
to
counterproductive.
your business day, your business work week, so that you can avoid having to pay that benefit. And yet, if the companies had no real choice before this, so I think that getting that back is one of the areas that will change.
And yeah, and as far as you know, when we think of all of that now, you know, you live perhaps a little bit more so than I might, being here and from points north, but there's no secret, the whatever you want to call it, the tri-state area, the greater New York metropolitan area. Now, we have viewers from all over and people that pick us up in the aftermarket, but you know, New York is known for very high taxes, a lot of tolls, heavy bureaucracy, or the greater New York area. Transportation being iffy on a good day. On and on and on we go, but yet on and on we remain, and obviously there's no shortage of people, you know, coming in and going out of the greater New York region. What is your sense of what will happen in the region going into 2015 and 2016?
Well, one thing, when we talk about the region, we have two Democratic governors in New York and Connecticut, respectively, and then New Jersey is under the governorship of a Republican. And so I think that ideally the states need the three states. It would be great if they could work together. But unfortunately, I think that they don't feel a real need to have common ground. And I think that's an issue. How I think New York is the highest tax state. In fact, I heard someone speak at a political fundraiser, and I think that New York has more people and more jobs than has left. And I think Alabama has been the recipient. I think Alabama or Mississippi, it might be Alabama, has gotten a lot of contracts because companies have left New York. I think that is a travesty. New York State has so much going for it. Certainly New York City, our stock market, just so many companies are headquartered. Yet they really can't afford to do business here anymore because the taxes are so high. And I think that we simply must address the tax issue. Whether we will or not, I don't know. I mean, I think our governor in New York State, and I can't speak for the one in Connecticut because I don't follow his policy, but I think our governor in New York State has really not addressed the issue of business taxes and his position on not to allow fracking, which would be such a boon to the upstate New York economy, where jobs are really hard to find and have been lessening in number for quite a period of years. I think that's not good, and I think so. To answer your question, I think we may see more of the same, but I think at least in Washington, we have some real indications that there can be structural change, and maybe that will filter down to the states. So I agree with you. It's an expensive, the tri-state area is an expensive place to get in and out of for transportation. The regulation is crazy. I'm sure you saw that now this is a national issue that our president is trying now to regulate the internet, much like a utility would be. So I think we're going to see an awful lot of debate about whether or not that's a good thing. So I see, unfortunately, a very difficult regulatory environment, and I still see a high tax environment. Although our deficits are coming down on a national basis, and I think that that's good. But I also am concerned about what they're calling deflation, and that's another whole topic, which I'd be happy to talk to you about. But I see signs of an improving economy, but not nearly as robust as the numbers would like you to believe.
Well understood, and there were a number of things that you said, and I was kind of scribbling furiously as you were speaking, because there's just so many things here to talk about. Let's get back to fracking for a moment. I like you, I'm intrigued with fracking and energy independence. It's just how we're just strung in this country by whatever some foreign country wants to do, or whatever they want to close off, or you know, as far as turning the world's markets and economies into turmoil. What gives me pause, and these two subjects that I'm going to speak to is really what gives me pause about first fracking, then we'll talk about net neutrality. But in fracking, I often think of what General Electric did to Schenectady thousands of years ago. And as far as, you know, this is going to be good for you, yeah, right, and they're still dealing with the contamination. And, yeah, and my question is, you know, fracking, if safe, could be a wonderful thing. How does New York do fracking to a point where, you know, to at least convince everyone that this isn't, this will be economically and environmentally controllable?
Well, first of all, just to back up a bit, we have seen a major boom to the economy because energy prices have come down. You know, I just filled up my Jeep yesterday for $3.05, and we were paying $3.75 or $3.80.
Right.
Not that long ago. So what that does is that puts more money in the pocket of the consumer to go spend at Walmart. But the other thing that it does is it certainly says, gee, we are now producing here in this country enough energy that we aren't as dependent upon foreign production. And that's a good thing. That really is a good thing. And part of the reason that we've been able to do that is because of fracking. And in many states, certainly in Texas and North Dakota, they have found ways to do fracking where it's not harmful to the environment. What we have in this country, however, is, in my opinion, a misinformed environmental group who feel that anything that you do with the environment is wrong. And we've been able to demonstrate down in Pennsylvania, for example, I wrote a piece about this a year ago, that if it's done properly, it can be a good thing. Yes, I think we have to make sure that the companies that do it we hold their feet to the fire and make sure they do it correctly. But to say that we shouldn't do it at all, just bowing to the environmentalists, I think is a problem, because it hurts our economy if we don't create jobs. And look at the boom in North Dakota, for example, and Texas. They both have very strong employment. I think their employment in both states is unemployment is somewhere around 4%. And it was 4% when ours was still 9%. So it may have dropped even lower than that. And that's because they have a different opinion and a different policy about allowing fracking. So I agree that you have to do it correctly, and we have to have people watching companies, because left to their own devices, they would behave like GE did.
Right.
Because it's more expensive to do it properly. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done. It just means that somebody has to watch over them and make sure they do it correctly. That can be done. If we can regulate the banks so much that we've cut off the economy, we can certainly find a way to regulate fracking and make sure that they behave.
That's an excellent point. And then secondly, I wanted to go to net neutrality, and I guess where I would like to go with this is I would like for you to explain what this means in concept, and then I'd like to discuss the fact of I don't think anybody loves their cable provider. It's sort of like choose your favorite dictator or villain, and the fact that your cable provider is crying for more revenue to supposedly do something good is maybe akin to what Ronald Reagan would say about the government. I'm here from the government and I want to help you. And it's just, explain this to us and what it means and how people come down on both sides of this issue.
Well, I am not as up on it because it was just announced yesterday that our president wants to have the Federal Communications Commission reclassify the Internet as a public utility. So I'm just starting to learn a little bit more about what net neutrality means. But what it really does is, in a nutshell, is it discriminates against content providers. And so, of course, you're going to see that the companies like Netflix and the HBO streaming video that's coming online, they're going to charge up and scream about it because it would make it much more expensive for them to deliver their business model. So I think it's going to take a while before it can happen, but it's something that really needs to be studied. I think that there could be pluses and minuses, and of course there are people that feel strongly about it both ways. I'm just not sure where it's going to come down, but I do know it's going to be a great big debate.
Well, and I know, me, myself, and I, what we've been able to do here with video, I sort of had a, I'm going to call it a passive interest in it, where it, now the Internet is free and open space, and anybody pretty much can do as they are able to do. And my thought being with cable television, shall we say, with more people pulling the cord and with more things being available online, if bigger providers could somehow tilt the balance of directed viewership in their favor, other people doing independent content may not have the same opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to have a quality broadcast, and that's where, I'll sit here and say, I want to be treated the same way as, Comcast is, or HBO is, or whosoever. Now, of course, I can dream, but I personally, when I looked at it, I said, this is really the best source of public information that's ever been available to mankind. I mean, it's incredible what you can find out there, and if you learn how to look for it. And I would hate to see that not be available to those wanting to see it, because it really has democratized, as far as I'm concerned, information. However, it doesn't necessarily make people any more intelligent, but the information's sure there. So I've been following it, and I kind of look at it as you do. It's what does it all mean, and where is it all going to go? I just, not that it's a perfect system, I want to see it get better, but I like the fact that I can get my hands on information.
Well, I do too, and the concern I have is that when you start to regulate it and turn it into a utility, then you're going to have issues, because utilities are not really serving the public. There was a piece in the Wall Street Journal this morning by Andy Kessler, who was a hedge fund manager and had a tech hedge fund. And he now writes frequently, but I would encourage your users, or your listeners, to look at that op-ed piece, because he had a very interesting analysis. He had worked for AT&T back when it was a phone utility, and what happens is that utilities can strangle innovation. So his opinion, and obviously somebody who benefited from a burgeoning technology environment, is that net neutrality would be an issue for people. I'm concerned because anytime the government gets in the way, I see what happens with you know, when the government has regulated utilities, and for a long time the telephone company was regulated, and
Right.
now that it isn't, look what's happened. I mean, we have many choices, we have many providers, we have many different plans available, we can pay for what we use. That kind of thing didn't exist when the telephone company was the utility. So I think that we need to be very careful about the way we structure it if we want to do it. And I think there are probably arguments on both sides. I just think that it will be something that we should pay attention to, because when the government gets involved, it very seldom ends up helping the consumer. That's my thought.
There's usually some motive involved. I fully agree with you. I heard something interesting today on the radio, and this was the Wall Street Journal report on CBS, which Joe Connolly, who's a terrific journalist, has been doing for thousands of years, longer than I can remember, and I go back pretty far. There is a statistic about entrepreneurship in New York City or the greater New York region that's really on the way up. And this organization came out and said, you know, this is really the wave of the future. It's not going to be, you know, the high-paid corporate job and the 4 weeks vacation and the you know, the wood panel station wagon and the suburb and all that. It's an entirely different breed of cat when you talk about dealing with the economy. And I've been saying this for years. It's like I laugh to myself when communities are, you know, we want to develop a corporate park and invite a large employer in. It's like, guys, you know, you've missed this by about 15 or 20 years. And my personal wish would be in government that we would see legislators and representatives making entrepreneurship a more friendly thing, a more tax-friendly thing, a more, shall we say, fertile thing, rather than just taxing it and fighting it and regulating it. And that's my little editorial piece for this segment.
Well, no, you're absolutely right, because if you unleash the entrepreneurship and let people do what they do best, and don't overregulate them. I mean, look at the innovation that can come out of that. But when you tie their hands with excess regulation and taxes that make it impossible, that make it crippling to try to work in an environment like New York City or even the tri-state area. I mean, I think Greenwich with all of the hedge funds, they suffer from some of the same issues, not nearly the tax burden that New Yorkers do. But I definitely agree. Our country was really built on the idea of
rugged individualism. Yeah.
And we need to encourage that if we're going to continue to be a leader in the world economy. And I think when you thwart that by excess regulation and taxation, then it does a disservice. I agree, however, that more and more jobs are being created at the entrepreneurial level. The New York City's tech market, by the way, is booming.
Yes.
I was at a presentation 2 weeks ago where a private equity firm was talking about some of the companies that they have funded, and it's just incredible the kinds of deals that they see and where they're willing to commit money because they believe in these people. And of course, it's taxed at a capital gain rate, so that's not favorable to a private equity company. But be that as it may, it does great things for the economy if you unleash the entrepreneur. So I agree with you.
Well, yeah, and you know, iron sharpens iron, that's for sure. But believe it or not, we're spinning out of time. To our new fans and friends, where can they reach you, and what will your activities be going into the end of the year and going into the new year, Mary?
I am, first of all, they can reach me on marysheils@gmail.com. That's MerrySheils@gmail.com, and the phone is 917-597-6363. And what I am focusing a lot of my attention on now is content marketing for companies, which is a strategy designed to invite a conversation with a prospect or a client using web-based tools, blogging, webinars, white papers to some degree, but rather than using advertising, which really doesn't work anymore because people drown them out, attracting people through these kinds of social media sites. And that is a phenomenal growth industry, and I'm working with a lot of community banks in that area because they can't afford to hire a full-time person devoted to expanding their social media usage. And so it's a great market. And with my financial services background, I can help them add value. So that's what I'm doing. I'm continuing to write. You haven't seen some of my pieces because I have been working with a couple of investment banks, so I've been doing a lot of ghostwriting with them. But I will be back on Woman Around Town soon with some other pieces. I'm writing a piece on the General Motors building, so watch for that. It'll be out in a week or so.
I can't wait. And listen, thanks so much, and thanks for being with us this day on Connecticut Morning. Always appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony. Bye-bye.
And that was Mary Sheils, and we will be coming back really soon. Watch these retromercials. They are unbelievable. We'll see you just in a bit. Take care.